He announced he was leaving me for his secretary at our anniversary dinner, right there in front of 150 guests. "Ruby understands ambition," he said, pulling her close. I set down my wine glass, kept my voice steady, and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "The $5 million transfer cleared just over an hour ago, Noah. Every cent." His face went white. The Sterling Room had always been our place. 8 years ago, Noah had proposed to me here. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." Back when it was just a small Italian restaurant called Mama Rosa's with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. Now it was the most exclusive dining venue in downtown Portland, with crystal chandeliers, a 3-month waiting list, and prices that made most people wince. Noah had insisted on celebrating here. "Only the best for my girl," he'd said that morning, kissing my forehead while scrolling through his phone. I'd watched him in the bathroom mirror, wondering if he could see the difference in my eyes. Wondering if he noticed that I hadn't called him babe in 3 weeks. He hadn't noticed. Men like Noah never do. The reservation was for 7:30, but Noah had asked me to arrive at 8. Client meeting running late. You know how it is. I'd known exactly how it was. I'd known for 7 months. When I walked into the Sterling Room at exactly 8 p.m. wearing the midnight blue dress Noah had bought me for Christmas, I immediately understood why he'd wanted me late. The entire back section had been reserved. Our friends filled a dozen tables, couples from our neighborhood, Noah's college buddies, my book club ladies who weren't really my friends so much as women I smiled at twice a month. His parents sat front and center, his mother Margaret already on her second martini, his father Albert looking uncomfortable in a suit too tight around the collar. But it was the stage that made my breath catch. I'd known it would be here. I'd seen the rental invoice in Noah's email, but seeing it in person, all lit up with spotlights and 2 microphones waiting, made it real in a way the email hadn't. This wasn't a dinner. This was a production. Bethany. Noah's voice carried across the room. He stood near the bar in his charcoal gray suit, the Tom Ford I'd helped him pick out last month. "There's my beautiful wife." The word wife sounded different tonight. Like he was already speaking about me in past tense. I made my way through the tables, accepting hugs and air kisses from people who probably wouldn't remember my name in 6 months. My best friend April grabbed my hand as I passed, her fingers squeezing tight. "You look stunning," she whispered. "But what's with the stage?" "No idea," I lied, squeezing back. April's husband Justin sat beside her, looking vaguely uncomfortable in the way lawyers do at social events. Noah pulled me into a hug that felt more like a performance than affection. His cologne was different tonight. Not the Dior I'd given him. Something sharper. Younger. I caught a glimpse of red hair over his shoulder and knew immediately who'd helped him pick the new scent. Ruby Clausen stood near the windows, pretending to look at her phone. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my first car, her auburn hair falling in perfect professionally styled waves. At 26, she was exactly the kind of beautiful that didn't need much effort, tall, slim, with confidence that came from never having been told no. She'd been Noah's executive assistant for 18 months. I'd met her exactly 3 times, and each time she'd barely looked at me. Just another accessory in Noah's life, easily ignored. I'd ignored the red flags too. Explained them away. Until I couldn't anymore. "Everyone's here," Noah said, his hand on the small of my back. "I have a surprise for tonight." "Do you?" I kept my voice light. Easy. The same tone I'd been using for 7 months while systematically preparing for this exact moment. "You're going to want to sit down for this one." He guided me toward the head table, where 2 seats waited. The spotlight hit them at an angle that would make whoever sat there the absolute center of attention. I let him pull out my chair. Let him kiss my cheek. Let him play devoted husband for 60 more seconds while 150 people watched and probably thought we looked perfect. Ruby had moved closer to the staging area now, hovering near the edge. She kept glancing at Noah, then at her phone, then back. Nervous energy radiated off her in waves. This was her big moment too. She'd probably spent hours imagining this night. The lights dimmed. Conversations faded. Noah stood, straightening his tie with that practiced gesture I'd once found charming. Now I just saw it for what it was, vanity masquerading as confidence. He picked up a microphone. The spotlight swung to follow him as he stepped onto the stage. Every phone in the restaurant lifted. I could see the red recording dots multiplying like a virus spreading through the crowd. Good. I wanted this documented. Thank you all for coming, Noah began, his voice smooth. I know you thought you were here for a simple anniversary dinner. He paused for effect. But tonight is about something much bigger than that. My hand stayed folded in my lap. Perfectly still. The left one trembled slightly. I pressed it flat against my thigh until it stopped. I'd practiced this moment in front of my bathroom mirror for weeks, rehearsing different expressions until I found the right one, pleasant confusion with just a hint of concern. Noah's expression shifted as he soaked in the attention. He lived for moments like this, rooms full of people hanging on his every word, cameras pointed in his direction. 8 years ago, he continued, pacing the small stage, I made a promise to the most beautiful woman I'd ever met. I promised to love her, honor her, build a life with her. He gestured toward me, and the spotlight shifted, catching me in its glare. I kept my expression neutral. Pleasant. Bethany has been by my side through everything. The late nights building Beck Capital Management. The stress of managing client assets. The pressure of being one of Portland's top financial advisors under 40. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Several people glanced at me with something like pity. But here's what I've learned, Noah said, his tone shifting. Success changes you. I've grown. We've grown apart. I need someone who gets where I'm headed now, not where we were 5 years ago. April's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. She knew. Not the details, but enough to sense what was coming. Noah pulled a folded paper from his inside jacket pocket. My divorce papers. I recognized them immediately, not because I'd seen them before, but because I'd filed my own set with my attorney exactly 7 days ago. They were sitting in a safe deposit box downtown, waiting. Bethany, Noah said, stepping down from the stage and walking toward me with the papers held out. You've been an incredible partner. But I need someone who understands the pace I'm moving at. Someone who gets the vision. Someone who pushes me to be more, not someone who's content with where we are. The room had gone silent. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. I took the papers. My hands were steady now. That surprised me a little. I don't understand, I said softly. Confused wife. Blindsided. What are you saying? I'm saying I want a divorce. He said it clearly, making sure everyone could hear. Making sure it would sound good on all those recordings. I'm saying I've found someone who matches my energy. My ambition. Ruby stepped forward on cue, moving to Noah's side like they'd re-hieroglyphed it. Her hand slipped into his, fingers intertwining with practiced ease. This is Ruby Clausen, Noah announced. My executive assistant. My partner. The woman who's been helping me build something extraordinary. I watched Ruby's face. She was glowing. Absolutely radiant with victory. She'd won. In her mind, this was romance. This was passion. In 6 months, she'd learned differently. I know this is unconventional, Noah continued, still holding Ruby's hand while clutching divorce papers in the other. I know some of you probably think I'm an asshole. But I'd rather be honest and build something real with Ruby than fake happiness with someone I've outgrown. Outgrown. The word hung in the air. Margaret set down her martini with a sharp click. Albert shifted in his seat, his face red. Around the room, people exchanged glances. Some shocked. Some uncomfortable. A few, mostly Noah's single friends, looked almost impressed. April's grip had become painful, but I didn't pull away. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. So, Noah looked directly at me. I know this is a lot. But my lawyers will reach out to yours tomorrow. We'll split everything fairly, the house, the accounts, all of it. You'll be taken care of. You won't have to worry. Won't have to worry. As if I'd been some helpless dependent. As if I hadn't been the one managing our household finances. As if I hadn't quietly built something he knew nothing about. I stood up slowly. The papers crinkled in my hand. Around us, 150 people held their breath, phones still recording, waiting to see how this played out. You're right, Noah, I said, my voice steady and clear. This is a lot to process. But before everyone leaves, I think there's something you should know too. His confident expression flickered. Just for a second. He hadn't expected me to speak. 7 months ago, I began, still holding those divorce papers, I got a call from our bank. They wanted to verify a large wire transfer, $50,000 moved from our savings into an account I didn't recognize. I kept my voice conversational. Easy. Like I was telling a story at a dinner party. When I asked you about it that night, you said it was a short-term investment opportunity. A sure thing. You'd have the money back in 30 days, plus 15% returns. I paused. That was the first lie. Or maybe it wasn't the first. Maybe it was just the first one I caught. Noah's face had gone very still. Ruby glanced at him, confusion starting to cloud her confident expression. So I hired someone, I continued, walking slowly toward the stage. Margot Harvey. She's an accountant who hunts down financial fraud. Bethany, this isn't the time or place, Noah started. No, this is exactly the time and place, I cut him off. You wanted an audience, remember? You rented a stage. You brought 150 people. You hired a videographer. I pointed to the young man in the corner who was still recording everything, his camera swinging between Noah and me. So let's give everyone the full show. April was standing now. I could see her texting someone, probably getting legal advice in real time. Cost me $15,000 for Margot's complete audit, I said. Worth every penny. She dug through 3 years of Beck Capital's books. Someone in the crowd gasped. Turns out about 40% of those impressive returns you've been showing clients. I let that hang for a moment. Fabricated. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, chairs scraping. Noah's lawyer mask slammed into place, that blank, careful expression he used when clients asked uncomfortable questions. Bethany, you're upset. I understand. But making wild accusations. They're not accusations, I said calmly. They're findings. Documented findings. Client statements showing gains that never happened. Money being moved between accounts to create the illusion of growth. New client deposits being used to pay returns to old clients. I looked directly at him. You've been running a Ponzi scheme, Noah. For at least 3 years. Albert stood up, his chair scraping loud against the floor. What are you talking about? I'm talking about client statements showing profits that don't exist in the actual trading records. I'm talking about 47 people who trusted Beck Capital with their retirement savings, and you've been lying to all of them. Margaret's martini glass fell from her hand, shattering against the floor. That's insane, Noah said, but his voice had lost its smoothness. You're making this up. You're angry about the divorce. I have documentation. I pulled my phone from my clutch. Every falsified statement. Every fabricated transaction. Every client account that shows profits that don't exist. Margot traced everything back 3 years. That was enough. Ruby had taken a step back from Noah. Noah, what is she talking about? You said the business was solid. The business looks solid on paper, I said. That's the whole point of a Ponzi scheme. It looks great right up until someone asks to cash out. You're lying, Ruby whispered. I'm really not, I said. And you helped him. Those late nights at the office? You weren't just filing paperwork. You were creating false statements. Your signature is on dozens of them. Margot found those too. Ruby's face went white. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what they were for. He said they were drafts. He said. Stop talking, Noah hissed at her. But Ruby wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me with dawning horror. How long have you known? She asked. About us? 7 months, I said. The Riverside Hotel charged $340 to our joint credit card for a Friday afternoon. I called them. They don't have conference rooms. Just guest rooms and a restaurant. Ruby made a small wounded sound. I hired a private investigator after that. Gerard Bellevue, former FBI. He followed you both for 3 months. I have photos, videos, credit card receipts, text messages Gerard recovered from Noah's laptop backup. I looked at Noah. You weren't as careful as you thought. Your home laptop backs up to the cloud automatically. Including deleted messages. Margaret had moved to stand beside Albert. Her hand found his, squeezing tight. Despite the martinis, her eyes were suddenly sharp and focused. How much? She asked me, her voice steady. How much did he steal from clients? Margot's final calculation came to $2.6 million in fabricated returns and covered losses over 3 years, I said. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Some clients lost money that Noah covered up with fake gains, I continued. Others had gains that were inflated. The $5 million I transferred should be enough to cover full restitution plus legal fees. Albert was crying now. Actual tears running down his weathered face. My name is on that firm, he whispered. Beck Capital Management. My reputation. I know, I said softly. That's why I'm fixing it. Noah's phone buzzed in his pocket. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. Probably notifications that he was being locked out of everything in real time. Bethany, he said, and for the first time, his voice cracked. You can't do this. That's theft. That's my legal right, I said. But we'll get to that. First, let me tell everyone what that $5 million actually is. I reached into my clutch again, pulling out a folded document. Not the divorce papers Noah had handed me, those were still in my other hand. This was something else. Something I'd been carrying for exactly 4 days. This, I said, holding it up so the spotlight caught it, is proof of the transfer. Dated today. Time stamped 6:52 p.m. Noah's eyes locked onto the paper. I watched the realization crawl across his face. Beck Capital maintains an operating account at First National. It's where client deposits go before being allocated to individual investment accounts. As of this morning, that account held $5.2 million in liquid assets. I unfolded the paper slowly. As of 6:52 p.m., it held $200,000. The silence was absolute. You can't, Noah started, but his voice cracked. That's not your money. That's company capital. Is it? I tilted my head. Because according to the partnership papers we both signed when we founded Beck Capital 8 years ago, the one you probably forgot about, both partners have equal access to all company accounts. April made a small sound that might have been a laugh. She'd been there when Noah had insisted on making me an equal partner. For tax purposes, he'd said. Clients trust a husband-wife team. They'd trusted it. Right up until the husband decided the wife was disposable. I am a 50% owner of Beck Capital Management, I continued. My signature is on every piece of founding paperwork, every bank account authorization. So when I walked into First National this afternoon and requested to move money, they processed it without question. Half, Noah repeated. You said $5 million. Half of 5.2 million is 2.6 million, yes. I know. I allowed myself a thin smile. But there's this clause in our partnership agreement. It says if one partner commits fraud, the other partner can assume full control of company assets to protect clients and facilitate restitution. Margaret had stopped drinking entirely now, her martini forgotten on a nearby table. I used that clause this afternoon, I said. My attorney filed the paperwork with the state. I am now the sole managing partner of Beck Capital Management. Which means I had the authority to transfer all 5 million. I paused. Well, 5 million minus the 200,000 I left. I'm not completely heartless. This is insane, Ruby whispered. She'd backed up against the window. You can't just take someone's company. I didn't take it, I corrected her. I saved it. That 5 million is currently sitting in an escrow account managed by 3 attorneys. It will be used to make restitution to the 47 clients Noah defrauded. Every client will be made whole. Whatever's left over will go to legal fees. I turned back to Noah, holding up the transfer receipt. This also serves as your official notice that you're being removed as a partner in Beck Capital due to fraudulent activities. You have zero access to company accounts as of 6:52 p.m. today. The office locks were changed at 7:15. Your company email was disabled at 7:20. Your phone should stop working. I check my watch, any second now. Noah's phone made a final, desperate buzz before going silent. He pulled it from his pocket, staring at the no service message. Bethany, Albert said, his voice hoarse. Those clients. My friends invested with Beck Capital. Are you saying? I'm saying they'll be protected, I assured him. That's what the 5 million is for. That's why I didn't wait for federal investigators to freeze the accounts. By the time they got around to it, Noah could have moved that money somewhere we'd never find it. I looked at Noah. You were planning to move it, weren't you? Tomorrow morning. Transfer it somewhere offshore. Take Ruby. Disappear. Ruby made a choking sound. No. Noah, tell her that's not. But Noah wasn't looking at Ruby anymore. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. You want to know what's funny? I said, moving closer to the stage. The offshore account already exists. Bank of Grand Cayman. Opened 6 weeks ago under a shell corporation called Bellevue Holdings. Noah's jaw clenched. Margot found that too, I continued. Along with the wire transfer instructions you saved in your drafts folder. 4.8 million. Scheduled to process tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., right after you thought you'd have me sign those divorce papers and slink away quietly. I held up his papers, the ones he'd handed me so ceremoniously. These aren't just divorce papers, are they? Page 7. Asset disclosure form. I flipped through the document. It lists our joint assets. The house, valued at 1.2 million with your parents' names somehow on the title, which is news to me. Our joint savings, listed as 50,000 when it was actually 180,000 last month. My inheritance from my grandmother, not mentioned at all. I looked up at him. You were going to have me sign away everything I actually owned while hiding everything you'd stolen. That's not a divorce settlement. That's theft with paperwork. Justin had arrived at some point. I saw him slip through the entrance, April immediately grabbing his arm and pulling him close to whisper frantically. His expression shifted from confused to alarmed to professionally neutral. Lawyer face. The house isn't in my parents' names, Noah said weakly. It is as of 3 weeks ago, I countered. You signed the house over to them. Filed the paperwork with the county the same day. Probably thought I'd never check. I pulled out another document. But I did check. Just like I checked our joint brokerage account that you emptied 2 weeks later. Just like I checked the title on my car that you transferred to Ruby a week after that. Ruby made a strangled sound. The car, you said it was a company car. It was Bethany's car, Margaret said suddenly, her voice cutting across the room. Her grandmother's BMW. The one she inherited when Josephine died. She stood up, swaying slightly but her eyes clear. Noah, tell me you didn't. Noah's silence was answer enough. So let me paint the full picture for everyone, I said, turning to address the room. All those phones were still recording. Good. 7 months ago, my husband started an affair with his secretary. 4 months ago, he began systematically moving assets out of my reach, the house, the car, our savings. 6 weeks ago, he opened an offshore account to hide the money he'd stolen from clients. And tonight, he planned to serve me divorce papers in the most humiliating way possible, thinking I'd be too shocked to read the fine print before signing away everything I had left. The murmurs grew louder. I could hear fragments, always seemed so nice, that poor woman, should have known. But here's what Noah didn't know, I continued. I'm not just a housewife who does charity work. Before I married Noah, I was a CPA. I worked for Deloitte's Fraud Investigation Division for 5 years. I know how to read financial statements. I know how to trace money. I spent half a decade catching people who tried exactly what Noah's been doing. That's ridiculous, someone called out from the back. One of Noah's college friends. Noah's a legitimate advisor. This is just a bitter wife. Is it? I turned toward the voice. Then explain why the trading records don't match the client statements. Explain why there are wire transfers between client accounts that were never authorized. Explain why the offshore account exists at all. Silence. Noah's face had gone from red to gray. You don't understand how financial management works, he said desperately. Sometimes you have to move money between accounts for liquidity purposes. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I also understand the difference between legitimate portfolio rebalancing and creating fake returns to cover losses. Want me to explain it to everyone here? He didn't answer. So when that bank called 7 months ago, I didn't just accept your explanation. I started digging. And once I started, I couldn't stop finding things. I pulled out my phone, opening Margot's file. 47 clients, Noah. 47 people who trusted you with their retirement savings, their kids' college funds, their life savings. I didn't steal, he said, finally finding his voice. I was managing investments. Sometimes you have to move money around to maximize returns. You created fake statements, I interrupted. You told Mrs. Chen her account grew by $45,000 last year when it actually lost $12,000. You told the Johnsons they had $300,000 when they had $180,000. You've been playing musical chairs with client money, hoping nobody would ask to cash out at the same time. Albert was openly sobbing now. My name is on that firm, he repeated. My reputation. I know, I said gently. That's why I'm fixing it. The $2.6 million in restitution should cover every client completely. Whatever's left, if anything, I've directed to go to you, Albert. It's not much, but it's something. No, Albert said quietly. Give it to charity. I don't want a penny that came from my son's lies. Around the room, people were standing now. Some heading for exits. Others moving closer, unable to look away from the disaster unfolding. You know what the really crazy part is? I said, my voice dropping but still carrying clearly. If you'd just asked for a divorce like a normal person, I probably would have given you everything. The house, the business, whatever you wanted. I loved you enough that I would have walked away with nothing just to avoid the pain of fighting. Ruby was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. But you didn't ask, I said. You plotted. You stole. You humiliated. You brought 150 people here to watch you destroy me publicly because that was more important than just letting me go quietly. I looked around the room one more time. At the stunned faces. At the phones still recording. At April standing with Justin, both of them ready to support me when I walked out of here. Actually, I said, remembering the list in my clutch. There's one more thing everyone should know. The 47 clients Noah defrauded? 23 of them are in this room right now. The murmuring stopped. Dead silence. I pulled out the printed list, unfolding it slowly. The Johnsons. Table 6. Your account statement says you have $290,000. You actually have $175,000. An elderly couple near the window stood up. Mrs. Johnson's hand pressed to her mouth, her face draining of color. That's our retirement, she whispered. That's everything. You'll get every penny back, I assured her. Plus interest. That's what the $5 million is for. The Chens. Table 8. I continued reading. Your retirement account supposedly grew by $45,000 last year. It actually lost $12,000. A middle-aged woman started crying, her husband's arm around her shoulders. We were going to retire next year, he said, his voice shaking. We were counting on that growth. You'll be made whole, I repeated. I promise. The Mortons. Table 3. Your daughter's college fund shows $80,000. It has $62,000. A man in his 40s stood up, his face red with rage. You told me that money was safe, he shouted at Noah. You looked me in the eye 6 months ago and told me Sarah's education was secure. Noah couldn't meet his eyes. The Pattersons. The Williamses. The Richardsons. The Kowalskis. I kept reading names, watching as people stood, faces shifting from confusion to horror to rage. The Mitchells, no relation, the Nguyen's, the O'Briens. Stop, Noah said. Please stop. The Goldsteins. The Ferreras. The Washingtons. I didn't stop. Every single one of you will receive a letter from my attorneys within 3 days. You'll get every penny back, plus interest calculated at the prime rate. That's what the $5 million is for. How could you? Mrs. Chen stood up, pointing at Noah. Our families had dinner together. Our children played together. You came to my husband's funeral and told me the account was doing well, that I didn't need to worry. I'm sorry, Noah said weakly. Sorry? Mr. Morton took a step toward the stage. Sorry? You stole my daughter's future. You lied to my face for years. Justin moved quickly, positioning himself between the angry father and Noah. I understand you're upset, he said calmly. You have every right to be. But Bethany's already working to fix this. The restitution fund will cover your losses. If you want to pursue additional legal action against Noah, that's your right, but let's not make this situation worse. Mr. Morton backed down, but his hands were still clenched into fists. Some of you were his friends, I continued, looking around the room. Some were business associates. Some were referred by Albert, back when Beck Capital actually meant something. I looked at Albert, whose face was buried in his hands. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But Noah chose this venue. He chose the audience. He wanted everyone to watch him humiliate me. So everyone gets to watch him face consequences instead. There's a clause in our partnership agreement, I said, my voice steady. It talks about what happens when fraud is discovered. But here's the simple version. If one partner commits fraud, the other partner can take control to protect everyone involved. That's what I did. Justin stepped forward then, his lawyer voice clear and professional. I'm an attorney. Corporate partnerships. What Bethany did? Completely legal. You committed fraud, Noah. She protected client assets. Any judge would back her play. If you fight this, you'll just draw more attention to what you did. The federal investigators will get involved. The state attorney general. Every client will sue you personally. Your malpractice insurance won't cover intentional fraud, which means they'll come after everything you have. One of the clients, Mr. Richardson, I think, spoke up. What about the SEC? Has anyone reported this? I submitted Margot Harvey's complete forensic audit to the SEC yesterday morning, I said. They're opening a formal investigation. You'll all be contacted as part of their inquiry. They move fast on cases like this. How fast? Mrs. Chen asked. Days, not weeks, Justin answered. They'll want to interview every affected client, verify the fraud, and build their case. Noah should expect federal charges. The room erupted in conversations. Clients comparing notes, asking each other about their accounts. Friends of Noah's backing away, distancing themselves. The videographer had stopped recording, looking uncomfortable, probably wondering if he'd get paid. Noah took a sharp step toward me, his hands balling into fists, but Albert grabbed his arm. Don't, Albert said quietly, tears still streaming down his face. Don't make this worse, son. Worse? Noah's laugh sounded unhinged. She just destroyed me in front of everyone I know. How could it possibly be worse? Because you did this to yourself, Albert said. Every choice. Every lie. Every stolen dollar. That was you, Noah. Not her. You. Margaret had stopped drinking entirely now. She stood, adjusted her dress, and walked toward the stage. For a moment, I thought she might go to Noah. Instead, she walked right past him, moving toward the exit. Margaret, Noah called out, his voice cracking. Mom, wait. She stopped. Turned. Looked at her son with an expression I couldn't quite read. I don't know you, she said simply. I thought I did. But the man I raised wouldn't have done this. To his wife. To innocent people. To his own father's reputation. She shook her head slowly. I don't know who you are anymore. Mom, please, Noah said, and for the first time all night, he sounded genuinely desperate. Let me explain. Explain what? Margaret's voice was sharp now, cutting. Explain how you stole from families who trusted you. Explain how you planned to humiliate your wife in public. Explain the lies. She took a shaky breath. There's nothing you can say that would make sense of this. Albert moved to stand beside his wife. He looked at Noah with such profound disappointment that it was almost painful to witness. We gave you everything, he said quietly. Every advantage. Every opportunity. We put our name on that firm because we believed in you. Dad. I defended you, Albert continued, his voice breaking. When people said you were too young to manage that much money. When competitors questioned your returns. I vouched for you. I told them my son was brilliant, ethical, trustworthy. He wiped his eyes. I was wrong. You weren't wrong, Noah said desperately. I am good at what I do. I made some mistakes. I can fix this. I can. You can't fix betraying 47 families, Albert said. You can't fix stealing millions. You can't fix what you've done to these people. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward then, her elderly frame shaking with emotion. You came to our house for dinner last month, she said to Noah. You sat at our table. Ate our food. Told us stories about your childhood. And the whole time, you knew. You knew you'd stolen our retirement. I was going to pay it back, Noah said weakly. I just needed time. Time? Mr. Chen spoke up, his voice thick with accent and anger. How much time? We're 72 years old. We don't have time. That money was supposed to last us through retirement. And you told me my husband's death benefit was invested safely, Mrs. Chen added, standing beside her son. You said it was growing. You said I didn't need to worry about money while I grieved. And you were lying. You were stealing from a widow. Ruby had been sitting on the floor, but now she stood up, wobbling in her bare feet. She looked between Noah and the clients, her expression shifting from confusion to horror to something like understanding. You told me they were wealthy, she said to Noah. You said they could afford the risk. You said, she stopped, shaking her head. Oh my God. You made me think this was sophisticated investment strategy. You made me believe we were helping them. Ruby, don't, Noah said. But Ruby wasn't listening to him anymore. She turned to Mrs. Chen. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he was doing. You signed the documents, Mr. Morton said accusingly. Your name is on my daughter's false statements. Because he told me they were drafts. Ruby's voice rose, defensive and frightened. He said we were running projections. Testing different scenarios. I thought I was helping with planning, not. She looked at Noah with something like betrayal in her eyes. You used me. That's not, Noah started. You used me to create fake documents, Ruby continued, her voice getting stronger. You made me think I was learning the business. You made me think we were building something together. But you were just using me to commit fraud. And to blow up your marriage, April added from across the room. She'd been quiet until now, but her voice cut through the chaos. Let's not forget that part. You used Ruby to hurt Bethany too. Ruby's face crumpled. I didn't mean, I thought we were in love. I thought. You thought wrong, April said coldly. You were convenient. Young. Impressed by his money and his lies. The second this all falls apart, and it is falling apart, he would have blamed you for everything. That's not true, Noah protested. Isn't it? I said quietly. That's exactly what you were planning. The offshore account is in Bellevue Holdings, Ruby's middle name. If anyone traced it, she'd take the fall. You set her up as your scapegoat from the beginning. Ruby's eyes widened. No. Noah, tell them. But Noah's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Ruby whispered. She looked around the room at all the angry faces, at the clients she'd helped defraud without knowing it, at Noah who'd manipulated her into being his accomplice. I need to call my parents. I need a lawyer. Yes, you do, Justin said, not unkindly. And you should probably cooperate with the SEC investigation. If you were genuinely unaware of the fraud, cooperation will help your case. Ruby nodded, grabbed her shoes from the floor, and ran for the exit, nearly tripping over her dress. Noah watched her go, then looked around the room. Maybe 60 people remained, clients who'd been defrauded, friends trying to process what they'd witnessed, a few morbidly curious observers who couldn't look away. Reggie, one of Noah's college friends, had his phone out but he'd stopped recording. He met Noah's eyes across the room and shook his head slowly before turning and walking out. One by one, others followed. The college buddies who thought this story would be funny. The business associates who didn't want to be associated with fraud. The social climbers who knew Noah's star had just crashed. Within 5 minutes, the crowd had thinned to maybe 30 people. Mostly clients who wanted answers. Mostly people Noah had hurt. The restaurant manager appeared then, looking extremely uncomfortable. Mr. Beck, he said carefully. I'm going to have to ask you to settle your bill and leave. This situation is disturbing our other guests. Other guests? Noah looked around the nearly empty restaurant. There are no other guests. I rented the whole section. Yes, well. The manager cleared his throat. Given the circumstances, we'd prefer if you concluded your event. Are you serious? Noah's voice rose. I paid for this space. I paid for the food, the wine, everything. With money you stole from clients, Mr. Morton said. Money that wasn't yours. The manager's expression shifted to alarm. Mr. Beck, I really must insist. Fine, Noah said. He pulled out his wallet, threw a credit card on the nearest table. There. Charge it all to that. Actually, I said, that card is linked to our joint account. The one I closed this afternoon. You might want to try a different one. Noah's hand froze. He pulled out another card. Then another. I watched as he tried 4 different cards, already knowing what would happen. All of these are being declined, the manager said apologetically. That's because they're all linked to accounts Bethany controlled or accounts that have been frozen pending investigation, Justin explained. Noah, you should probably leave now. Before this gets any more embarrassing. Embarrassing? Noah looked around at the wreckage of his life, his crying father, his disgusted clients, his former friends who'd already left. This is humiliating. This is justice, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Margaret and Albert moved toward the exit. Noah tried to follow them. Dad, wait. We need to talk. We need to figure out. Don't, Albert said without turning around. Don't call me. Don't come to the house. I can't look at you right now. When can you? Noah called after them. When can we talk? Albert paused at the door. I don't know, son. Maybe never. The door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than a slam would have. Noah stood there on his stage, alone now, the spotlight still on him but no one watching anymore. The videographer had packed up his equipment and left. The waitstaff had retreated to the kitchen. Even most of the clients had started drifting toward the exits, satisfied that justice was being served. This isn't over, Noah said, but his voice had lost all its power. I'll fight this. I'll get lawyers. You can't just destroy someone's life. I didn't destroy your life, I said calmly. You did. 7 months ago when you decided that stealing from clients was acceptable. 4 months ago when you started hiding assets from your wife. 6 weeks ago when you opened that offshore account. Tonight was just the reveal. He stared at me, and I could see him trying to find some way out, some angle, some argument that would let him escape the consequences of what he'd done. There wasn't one. The divorce will be finalized within 8 weeks, I said. My attorneys will contact yours Monday morning. All legitimate assets will be split according to Oregon law. But the house you tried to hide? The brokerage account you emptied? The car you transferred? All of that will be addressed. I have documentation of every fraudulent transfer. I walked toward the exit, April and Justin flanking me. Bethany, Noah called out one last time. Wait. Please. I stopped. Turned. For just a second, maybe 3 heartbeats, Noah's face showed something real. Not the practiced charm or the defensive anger. Just shock. Pure, genuine shock that I'd known everything. That I'd been 10 steps ahead. That the woman he'd underestimated had destroyed him so completely. Then it was gone, replaced by desperate anger. How long? He asked. How long have you been planning this? 7 months, I said. Since the day I got that call from the bank. Every single day since then, I've been preparing for this moment. While you were planning your exit with Ruby, I was building a better one. While you were hiding assets, I was documenting everything. While you were stealing from clients, I was working with Margot to figure out how to fix it. I moved closer to him one last time. You thought I was oblivious, I said quietly, my voice almost wavering but not quite. You thought I was just the pretty wife who managed your social calendar and smiled at your clients. You thought I'd cry and beg and make this easy for you. I paused. You were wrong about me, Noah. You were wrong about everything. Then I walked out of the Sterling room with my head held high, April and Justin right behind me. Behind us, I could hear people starting to talk. Questions flying. Accusations building. The sound of Noah's world crumbling in real time. I didn't look back. The night air hit me like a slap when we pushed through the restaurant doors. Cool and clean, washing away the suffocating atmosphere of that ballroom. My hands were shaking now that the performance was over. The adrenaline that had kept me steady for the last hour was draining away, leaving me hollow. Cars this way, Justin said, guiding me toward the parking garage across the street. April's arm was around my waist, holding me steady. I'm okay, I said, though my voice wavered. No you're not, April said gently. And you don't have to be. We made it to Justin's BMW before my knees buckled. I sat heavily in the back seat, still clutching Noah's divorce papers and my phone with all of Margot's evidence. April slid in beside me, pulling me against her shoulder. "You were incredible in there," she said. "Absolutely incredible." "I feel like I'm going to throw up," I admitted. "That's fair," Justin said from the driver's seat, pulling out of the parking space. "You just destroyed your husband in front of 150 people. Adrenaline crash is normal." We drove in silence for a few minutes. I watched Portland's lights blur past the window, feeling disconnected from my own body. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Our place," April said firmly. "You're staying with us tonight." "I already made up the guest room. I have clothes at the house." "My things." "We'll get them tomorrow," Justin interrupted. "Tonight, you're not going back there. Noah will probably show up eventually, and you don't need to be there when he does." He was right. Of course he was right. "The restraining order," I said suddenly, remembering. "Did you file it?" "Filed it 3 days ago," Justin confirmed. "Judge approved it yesterday. Noah can't come within 500 feet of you. If he shows up at the house or tries to contact you, he'll be arrested. I emailed you the signed order this afternoon." I'd forgotten. So much had happened in the last few days, so many legal documents and preparations. The restraining order had been Justin's idea after I'd told April everything 2 weeks ago. "What happens Monday?" I asked. "Monday, the SEC starts their formal investigation," Justin said. "Margot's already coordinated with them. They'll contact all 47 clients, verify the fraud, and start building a criminal case. The state attorney general's office will probably get involved too, given the dollar amounts." "How long?" April asked. "Until what?" "Trial?" Justin glanced in the rearview mirror. "Could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. But Noah will probably take a plea deal. His lawyers will advise him to cooperate, especially if they see the evidence Bethany has." "And the restitution?" "That moves faster. Margot's already working with the escrow attorneys. Clients should start seeing their accounts corrected within 4 to 6 weeks. Some might choose to sue Noah separately for emotional distress or punitive damages, but at least they'll have their principal back." We pulled into April and Justin's driveway in the Pearl District. Their townhouse looked warm and inviting, lights glowing in the windows. "I can't thank you enough," I said to both of them. "For tonight. For everything." "You don't have to thank us," April said fiercely. "You're my best friend." "What Noah did," she stopped, shaking her head. "He's lucky you handled this legally." "I wanted to key his car." Despite everything, I laughed. It came out shaky and slightly hysterical, but it was real. Inside, April had laid out comfortable clothes on the guest bed. Sweatpants, a soft t-shirt, thick socks. I changed gratefully, peeling off the midnight blue dress that Noah had bought me to look perfect while he destroyed me. I balled it up and threw it in the trash can. April appeared in the doorway with a cup of tea. "Chamomile. And I have wine if you want something stronger." "Tea's perfect." I took it, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. She sat on the edge of the bed. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "How are you really?" Not the brave face you wore in there. "How are you actually feeling?" I thought about it. Tried to identify the tangle of emotions swirling through my chest. "Relieved," I said finally. "Sad. Angry. Scared about what comes next." I took a sip of tea. "But mostly I feel free. Like I've been carrying something heavy for 7 months and I finally got to put it down." April squeezed my hand. "He really hurt you." "Yeah," I admitted. "He really did. Not just the affair. Not even the stealing. But the casual cruelty of it all. Planning to humiliate me publicly just because he could. That's what hurt the most." That he stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as an obstacle. Well, you showed him what happens when obstacles fight back. I managed a small smile. I guess I did. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. We need to talk. N. I showed it to April. She immediately called Justin, who came upstairs and photographed the text. Don't respond, he said. Don't delete it either. Save everything. If he keeps contacting you, we'll add it to the restraining order violations. I blocked the number and set the phone down. Get some rest, April said. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. But tonight, just rest. After they left, I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling. Exhausted but unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying the evening, Noah's face when I revealed the transfer, Ruby's breakdown, Margaret walking out, the clients learning they'd been defrauded. 7 months of planning. 7 months of keeping secrets, gathering evidence, building my exit strategy. It had all come down to one night, one confrontation, one devastating reveal after another. And now it was done. I finally fell asleep around 3 a.m., my phone silent beside me, Noah's desperate text message ignored, and the knowledge that tomorrow I'd wake up as someone new. Someone single. Someone free. Someone who'd fought back and won. I didn't go home that night, or the next week, or the week after that. April and Justin insisted I stay with them, and I was too exhausted to argue. I slept for 12 hours straight that first night, woke up to 17 missed calls from blocked numbers, and deleted every single voicemail without listening. The first week was a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Justin coordinated with Margot and the SEC investigators. I signed documents, gave statements, provided evidence. The machinery of justice moved slowly at first, then picked up speed. Noah hired Thomas Brennan, Justin told me on day 3. High-powered criminal defense attorney. Former prosecutor. He's good. Will it matter? I asked. Not really. The evidence is overwhelming. Brennan will probably advise him to take a plea deal. Cooperate with investigators, show remorse, hope for a reduced sentence. Week 2, the story hit the news. Not national news, but Portland's business section covered it extensively. Local financial advisor accused of $2.6 million fraud. Wife exposes husband's Ponzi scheme at anniversary dinner. Beck Capital Management clients await restitution. April showed me the articles on her iPad. I read them once, then asked her not to show me anymore. People are calling you a hero, she said. Social media is going crazy. There's a hashtag Beck Capital Whistleblower. I'm not a hero, I said. I just didn't want innocent people to lose everything. Week 3, Noah tried calling. Different numbers, different times of day. I blocked each one. He sent emails to an old account I rarely checked. Justin's paralegal screened them for legal relevance, then archived them without showing me. One made it through. April read it and immediately called Justin. He's blaming you, she said, furious. He's telling people you sabotaged the business because you were angry about the affair. He's saying the fraud allegations are made up. Let him say whatever he wants, I replied. The evidence speaks for itself. But that night, alone in the guest room, I read the email April had forwarded. Noah's words were desperate, angry, delusional. You destroyed my life over hurt feelings. The fraud you're alleging was just aggressive investing. Every financial advisor does what I did. You're blowing this out of proportion because I chose someone else. This is vindictive and you know it. I deleted it without responding. 3 months later, I got a text from April while I was sitting on my new back porch in Cannon Beach, watching the rain. Noah pleaded guilty. No trial. Sentencing in 6 weeks. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, how long? 18 to 24 months federal prison. Ruby got probation and community service. Cooperated with investigators. I set the phone down and went back to watching the rain. More texts followed over the next hour. April couldn't help herself, she needed to tell me everything. His lawyer said he showed remorse in court. The judge called it a profound betrayal of trust that damaged not just individual clients but the entire financial advisory profession. Several clients gave victim impact statements. Mrs. Chen made the prosecutor cry. Noah's parents weren't there. Margaret and Albert moved to Arizona last month. Didn't tell him they were leaving. I absorbed each update like distant news about someone I used to know. Because that's what Noah was now, someone I used to know. Not someone I loved. Not someone I hated. Just someone whose story I'd finally stopped being part of. My phone buzzed again. Email from Margot with the subject line, Final Restitution Report. I opened it, scanning the details I'd been waiting 3 months to see. All 47 clients had been made whole. Every fake gain erased, every real loss covered. The total had come to $2.4 million. Some client situations had turned out better than we'd feared once Margot dug deeper, leaving $2.6 million in the escrow account after legal fees. As promised, I directed the remainder to Albert, who'd immediately donated it to 3 different charities, a financial literacy nonprofit, a victims advocacy group, and a scholarship fund for business ethics students. He'd also sent me a handwritten note. Dear Bethany, I cannot begin to express my gratitude for what you did. You saved my reputation, protected innocent people, and handled this situation with more grace than my son deserved. I'm sorry for what he put you through. I'm sorry I didn't see the signs. You were always too good for him. I just didn't realize how true that was. With deep respect and appreciation, Albert. The note sat on my kitchen counter in Cannon Beach, still in its envelope. I couldn't look at it without feeling a complicated tangle of emotions I didn't have names for. April had been sending me updates regularly throughout the 3 months, even though I'd told her I didn't need them. She couldn't help herself. She needed to process, to make sure I knew everything that was happening. The updates painted a picture of a man coming apart slowly. Week 4, saw Noah at Trader Joe's. Sweatpants at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Hasn't shaved in days. He looked terrible. Week 6, Margaret told me he's living in a studio apartment in Beaverton. Albert won't let him in the house. Won't take his calls. Week 8, Ruby moved back to Ohio. Her LinkedIn says she's working at her dad's insurance agency. All her social media is deleted. Week 10, Beck Capital's office is empty. Building manager said the lease was terminated. All the furniture is in storage. Week 12, Noah showed up at the country club. Just sat at the bar for 3 hours nursing 1 drink. Security finally asked him to leave. I'd responded to each update with brief acknowledgements, okay. Thanks for letting me know. That's probably for the best. I didn't ask for more details. Didn't want them. Noah's downward spiral wasn't my responsibility anymore, and I didn't want to become the kind of person who fed on someone else's misery. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in knowing that consequences were real. That actions had weight. That the man who'd tried to destroy me publicly had instead destroyed himself. I deleted my own social media the week after the anniversary dinner. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of it gone. It felt like cutting chains I hadn't realized were holding me down. For years, I'd curated a perfect online life. Beautiful photos of dinners I didn't enjoy. Inspirational quotes I didn't believe. Check-ins at places that meant nothing to me. All of it performed for an audience that had vanished the moment Noah's fraud became public. The emails from former friends lasted about 2 weeks. Variations on, I had no idea, and, if there's anything I can do, from people who'd never once asked how I was doing when everything looked perfect. People who'd smiled at me at charity luncheons but didn't know my favorite color or what I was afraid of or what I wanted from life. I responded to none of them. 3 people from my old life remained, April, obviously. Mrs. Elston, an elderly woman from my book club who'd sent a simple note saying, "You did the right thing, dear." Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And surprisingly, Carmen, Margaret's former housekeeper, who'd texted to make sure I was eating properly and sleeping enough. Everyone else had been accessories to a life I no longer wanted. Justin handled all the legal logistics. The divorce was finalized in 8 weeks, quick and clean because Noah had stopped fighting. He'd signed everything his lawyer put in front of him, agreed to every term, took nothing. Whether that was guilt or strategy, I didn't know and didn't care. The house sold for $1.1 million. After paying off the mortgage and splitting what was left with Albert, who'd technically been on the title, I walked away with $280,000. Combined with my grandmother's inheritance that Noah had tried to steal, I suddenly had enough money to live modestly for years without working. Not that I wasn't working. I'd started freelancing as a forensic accountant, taking remote contracts through Margot's firm. Turned out catching financial fraud was something I was good at. And doing it from a beach house where nobody could see me was infinitely better than doing it in a corporate office. My phone buzzed with another text from April. Are you coming to Thanksgiving? Justin's sister is asking. She wants to know how many place settings. I looked out at the rain, at the gray ocean churning beyond my small yard, at the life I'd built from the ruins of the one Noah had tried to destroy. Maybe, I typed back. Still deciding. Truth was, I wasn't sure I was ready to go back to Portland yet. Ready to see familiar places and familiar faces and answer inevitable questions about how I was doing, what I was doing, whether I'd started dating again. The concern would be genuine, but it would still feel like performance. Like I was expected to have bounced back, moved on, become some triumphant version of myself that proved the bad guy didn't win. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. And quiet. And strangely peaceful in a way I'd never felt during 8 years of marriage. Another email arrived, this one from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my stomach clench, I'm sorry. I stared at it for 30 seconds before deleting it without opening it. I didn't need Noah's apology. Didn't want it. Whatever he needed to say to feel better about himself wasn't my responsibility anymore. The rain had stopped. A thin line of gold appeared on the horizon where the sun was trying to break through. I watched it spread slowly across the water, turning everything from gray to amber to gold. Beautiful. Quiet. Mine. I picked up my phone and texted April back, I'll come for Thanksgiving. But just for the day. I need to get back before dark. Her response came immediately, perfect. Can't wait to see you. And Bethany? I'm proud of you. I smiled, a real smile, and went back to watching the ocean turn gold. The coffee shop in Cannon Beach didn't have Wi-Fi, which was exactly why I liked it. The owner, a woman named May with silver hair and laugh lines, made coffee that actually tasted like coffee. She'd never asked why I'd moved to town. Just served me the same dark roast every morning. I'd been coming here for 3 months when someone sat down at my table without asking. You're the woman from Portland, the stranger said. She was maybe 60, wearing a worn rain jacket. The one who took down her husband for financial fraud. My daughter sent me the articles. I'm from a lot of places, I said. The one who exposed him at that anniversary dinner. She took a sip of her coffee. I bet that was quite a night. It was quite a dinner party, I said dryly. She laughed, a real laugh from her belly. I bet. I'm Reggie. Well, Regina, but nobody's called me that in years. Bethany. I know. She settled into the chair like she'd been invited. I used to be married to a liar too. Not a criminal, just your regular cheater. Took me 15 years to leave him. I closed my laptop. What made you finally do it? He asked me to lie to his mother about where he'd been on Christmas. Expected me to cover while he'd been with her. She shook her head. I looked at him and realized I didn't even like him anymore. Hadn't for years. I was just afraid of what came next. And what did come next? This, she gestured around the coffee shop. I moved here, bought a bookstore, started over. That was 12 years ago. Best decision I ever made. I'd seen the bookstore, narrow building wedged between a surf shop and a gallery, with stacks of used books in the window. You should stop by, Reggie said. I have a good mystery section. You look like someone who appreciates a well-plotted revenge. Despite myself, I smiled. I've had enough revenge for a lifetime. That's what I thought too. Reggie stood up. Turns out, living well is its own kind of revenge. Come by Thursday night. 7 p.m. Book club. We're reading mysteries this month. She left before I could say no. That afternoon, I walked the beach like I did most days. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and sharp. Tourists took photos of the rock formations. Locals walked dogs, nodding at me in that way that acknowledged presence without demanding conversation. I'd walked this beach maybe 100 times, still finding new things. Today it was a tide pool full of tiny crabs and anemones. I crouched beside it, watching the miniature ecosystem, completely indifferent to my presence. My phone buzzed. April, Noah's parents are selling their house. Moving to Arizona. Margaret said she can't stay in Portland after everything. I typed back, that's probably for the best. She asked about you. Wanted to know if you were okay. I stared at that message for a long time. Tell her I'm fine, I finally replied. Tell her I'm more than fine. And surprisingly, it was true. I wasn't triumphant or tragic. I wasn't anything that could be easily labeled. I was just a woman who'd survived something terrible and come out different. Not better, necessarily. Not worse. Just different. Thursday evening, I found myself standing outside the bookstore at 6:55 p.m. Through the window, I could see women arranging chairs in a circle. Reggie saw me and waved, gesturing for me to come in. I took a breath, opened the door, and stepped inside. The women welcomed me without preamble. No questions about Portland or Noah or the scandal. Just introductions, May from the coffee shop, a woman named June who ran the art gallery, others whose names I'd learn over time. We talked about the mystery novel we'd supposedly read, but mostly we talked about everything else. June's upcoming trip to Portugal. May's decision to expand the coffee shop. Reggie's granddaughter's college acceptance. Nobody treated me like I was broken or tragic. I was just Bethany who'd moved to town and liked dark roast coffee. When everyone left, I helped Reggie clean up wine glasses and empty snack bowls. Real wine from screw-top bottles, not the temperature-controlled cellar kind. You'll come back next week? Reggie asked. Yeah, I said. I think I will. Walking home, I realized I was smiling. Not the performance smile I'd worn for 8 years. A real one. My phone sat silent in my pocket. No texts from Noah, no apology emails, no attempts at contact. He'd finally understood what I'd known since that night at the Sterling Room. We had nothing left to say to each other. The house I'd rented was small but mine. No designer furniture or carefully curated art. Just comfortable things I'd chosen because I liked them. Books on the shelves I actually wanted to read. A kitchen where I cooked simple food that tasted good. I made tea and sat on the back porch, watching the sky change colors over the water. No agenda, no social obligations, no performance. Just me and the ocean and the quiet. It was enough. 6 months after the anniversary dinner, I woke to sunlight streaming through curtains I'd hung myself. Cream-colored linen from a local shop that smelled like lavender. They made the morning light look soft. I made coffee in the French press May had given me, claiming she had too many. I suspected she'd bought it for me, but I'd learned not to argue. The people in Cannon Beach had a way of helping that didn't feel like pity. My morning routine had become something I looked forward to. Coffee on the porch. An hour of work on whatever forensic accounting case I was handling. A walk on the beach. Lunch at the coffee shop or the taco place. Afternoons for reading or more work. Evenings for the book club or dinner with April when she visited, or just me and pasta watching the sunset. It was a small life. A quiet life. Nothing like Portland with the big house and the social calendar and the constant performance. I liked it better. The text from Justin came while I was eating breakfast. Sentencing today. Thought you'd want to know. Thanks, I typed back. Let me know. The response came 3 hours later while I was reviewing expense reports for a tech startup, 18 months federal prison. Reports in 30 days. Judge called it a betrayal of trust that damaged the entire financial advisory profession. 18 months. It seemed both too long and not long enough. But it wasn't my job to decide justice anymore. I'd done my part. How do you feel? April texted immediately after. How did I feel? I sat with that question, watching the ocean through my window. I feel free, I finally typed back. The book club met that night. 7 women in my small living room, sitting on mismatched chairs, drinking screwtop wine. We talked about the mystery novel, then about everything else. When everyone left, I cleaned up and realized I was smiling. A real smile. My phone sat on the counter, silent. No texts from Noah, no apology emails. He'd finally understood, we had nothing left to say. I thought about that night sometimes, the stage, the spotlight, the 150 witnesses. Noah had wanted an audience for my humiliation. Instead, he'd gotten an audience for his reckoning. And I'd walked away from the theater entirely. He was still performing his downfall for whoever would watch, judges, lawyers, prison administrators. Still seeking validation from external sources. I didn't need that anymore. I knew exactly who I was. I was the woman who transferred $5 million to save 47 families from ruin. I was the woman who'd walked away from a life that looked perfect but felt hollow. I was the woman who'd found herself in a rental house by the ocean, drinking cheap wine with strangers who'd become friends. And that was enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.